Greetings, family. I want to welcome you all to the Black Child Advocacy Network. This is a platform that I am specifically gearing towards the African community, the African family, the unit that is necessary in order to disable the oppression that we face by the white supremacist system. Because of that, I advocate for the Black family. I advocate for the whole Black family, not just Black women, not just Black men, not just Black children, but all of us as a unit, understanding that we have different roles inside of this liberation struggle, understanding that we're all necessary to this liberation struggle. That is what I put forward on this platform. I want to invite you all. There is a Patreon group to this channel that would allow you to support this initiative, this message, and also the idea of us connecting more and more together on this particular issue of the Black family. So if you want to support that initiative, the link is down below. What we're going to talk about today is a video that I'm sure many of you have seen already. Many of you have probably been watching on repeat. I'll say myself included. And so let's play this video and let's talk a little bit about what is unfolding in a mainstream narrative about the Black man.
There will come a time when Black people wake up and become intellectually independent enough to think for themselves, as other humans are intellectually independent enough to think for themselves. Then the Black man will think like a Black man, and he will feel for other Black people. And this new thinking and feeling will cause Black people to stick together. And then at that point, you'll have a situation where when you attack one Black man, you are attacking all Black men. And this type of Black thinking will cause all Black people to stick together. And this type of thinking also will bring an end to the brutality inflicted upon Black people by white people. And it is the only thing that will bring an end to it. No federal court, state court, or city court will bring an end to it. It's something that the Black man has to bring an end to himself.
What if I were to tell you that this image that we've seen playing on news cycles, playing inside of our timeline on Twitter, playing on YouTube, this image is the exact image that the mainstream media has tried to prevent. It's the exact image that they've tried to derail. The idea of the Black man standing up against the white man and actually using force, actually defending himself. This is something that has been intentionally ripped from our subconscious as African people, because we aren't shown figures of Black men standing strong. We aren't shown images of Black men standing up directly to the white supremacist system in anything other than a docile position. Instead, we're shown these pseudo activists who stand and say that they're going to take down the system by appealing to the emotions of the system, as if the system has emotions, appealing to the morals of the system as if the system has morals. That's what we've been given, instead of people who are going to be told to arm themselves, to stand tall, to defend themselves, and to not allow anyone to put their hands on them. So understand, this is the exact thing that they've been trying to prevent. Now, if you think I'm just being conspiratorial when I tell you that the media has intentionally tried to prevent these types of images, let me just show you some things that many of you might be familiar with if you've seen any history of our struggle. You might be familiar with times when the Black man was strong. You might be familiar with the UNIA. You might be familiar with times that the Black man was driving a narrative that said liberation or else, instead of this liberation please. You might be familiar with the Marcus Garvey. You might be familiar with these men who were commanding respect, looking as if they will not tolerate anything less than respect. Think about how this compares to our modern images. You might remember the Black Panther Party. All of us should. Black men standing up, not just demanding respect, but armed, showing that it's or else. There's no if, ands, or buts about it. We're not going to allow you to rape and pillage our communities. It's respect or else. Even in recent times, I know people have mixed feelings about this, but these Black men arming themselves, marching inside of an orderly formation. This was the NFAC. That image is one that they do not want in our memory. And I can tell you that they don't want this in our memory because we have seen a pseudo movement pop up in our community called Black Lives Matter. And instead, they want us to have this idea that this is fighting for our liberation. A Black woman who's standing by her white allies, so to speak. This is the image of liberation that they want to be inside of our minds. Here we have, again, many Black women standing alone with or with Black men in the background. I see one brother in the Black background. Here again, a die-in, which was the most emasculating from a protest I think we might have ever seen. Even more than the sit-ins. The sit-ins, at least these people were sitting. These people are lying on the ground saying, please feel bad for me. Please feel bad for me. Please reverse your stance inside of segregation. Oh, and then, of course, we always need this, right? Racial unity. This is the images that we're being shown. Why is it that these people, white and Black, can feel good about this moment? It's because there's no threat to them. There's no threat to their positioning. There's no threat to their world. Understand, an end to the white supremacist authority over the Black man and the Black woman and the Black child is an end to their world system. It's an end to the prison industrial complex. That's an end to their world system. That's an end to their reality. Why are they so comfortable with Black Lives Matter type movements, with these movements that seek to change the narrative away from the Black family and towards individualism, such as these intersectionality movements? The reason is because they see it not as a threat to their authority. They see it as something they could get behind and something that they can benefit from, whether monetarily or even as far as whatever you want to enact. It might benefit them in the long haul. So it's important for us to understand that what happened in Alabama. What happened in Alabama is not supposed to happen. What happened in Alabama is absolutely a threat to their agenda. It's absolutely a threat to what they want to accomplish. It's actually absolutely a threat to what they foresee as our positioning being inside of the mainstream discourse. It's a threat to that. And so for that reason, you have to understand that they're trying to get in front of this in some type of way. They don't know how to frame it yet. They can't say that this is a protest that wasn't just or act of violence that wasn't just, because clearly we saw the Black man being whipped in front of everyone. We've seen the Black man being jumped. So clearly this was justified. But at the same time, they don't want us to feel like it's justified to see brothers and sisters rise up and to strike down the Black man in such a the white man in such a forceful manner. So they're trying to get in front of it. They're trying to change the narrative. They're trying to create their own narrative. So the thing that we should understand is that this type of action is one that will get a real reaction from the system, because this system actually does not want this type of action to go forward. And the reason that is because they want Black men to be controlled. And clearly they didn't have control over the situation. They want us all to be controlled. They didn't have control over the situation. They didn't have control over the discourse. They didn't have control over the movements of the people. So let's look at something else that happened recently to show you how they actually want us to fall in line. They actually want us to galvanize to their authority. Now, I actually want to go back last year. Some of you might remember there was a bill that was put forward by Joe Biden. It was an anti-hate crime law or anti-lynching law. Now, if you go forward, it says President Joe Biden signed a law on Tuesday making lynching a federal hate crime. This was 2022. A federal hate crime, acknowledging how racial violence has left a lasting scar on the nation and asserting that these crimes are not a relic of the bygone era. At a White House Rose Garden signing ceremony, the president didn't hold back in describing the history of racial violence experienced by Black Americans and its continued impact. He said lynching was pure terror to enforce the lie that not everyone belongs in America, not everyone is created equal, terror to systematically undermine hard-fought civil rights, terror not just in the dark of the night, but in the broad daylight. Innocent men and women and children hung by nooses in trees, bodies burned and drowned and castrated. What Biden is saying is not completely true. You should understand. It wasn't just done as a way to undermine civil rights. I mean, some people found that as their means of getting their anger out over the civil rights movement. But the major reason why people were lynched is because they wanted to instill fear inside of the black man. You have to understand, usually, whenever it came to lynching, it was because of a mere allegation or thought of the black man challenging the white man's authority. And we know historically the white man's authority has been seen over his household and over his government, the household being a smaller government. So whether it is the idea, just the mere idea of touching a white woman, whether it was the idea of trying to have political power inside of his government. This is what lynching was for. This is what lynching was essentially to do, to put terror inside of the minds of black people and to make us fall in line. Now, why am I bringing this up? When Joe Biden put forward this law, a lot of people were all dancing around and, clapping. Obviously, you saw Kamala Harris, as this article says, Kamala Harris was there. So was Cory Booker. So was Tim Scott. Everyone was so excited. And of course, they missed the mark, because if you know anything about how things happen, number one, lynching, although it does happen, it's not being done in the same way. One thing that they have done to lynch us, to create the same type of result, being fear instilled inside of the black man, is use something that many of us hold dear, and that is the mighty dollar, in order to instill fear into us. So many of us are too afraid to say what we think and mean what we say, and to stand up. For example, let's be real, like a lot of what's happening right now as far as the gun debate. While many of us feel like, yes, these things are crazy, but I, as a black man, still need to be armed, many of us are not going to take that affirmative step because we don't want to be seen as a threat to the system. And the way that they've done that is by controlling the gun narrative. And instead of making it about us trying to arm ourselves and be separate, they've changed it into trying to stop assault rifles. Now, don't get me wrong, these assault rifles, the fact that they have them in this society, are crazy. But if you're going to rewind the clock starting today and say, hey, we're not going to have assault rifles anymore, well, that's fine if you're going to actually take all the assault rifles that already exist, but I do not believe that they're going to actually seize any assault rifles from the people who have assault rifles, meaning the result could be a situation where African people are left defenseless, and these militias who are heavily armed, not to mention the U.S. government, who we know is our number one enemy, is heavily armed. They want us to be excited about the fact that they're getting rid of assault rifles for our community, or for people who can legally access it that way. And yet they're going to leave these militias who are still going to be armed, and still, again, our biggest opponent, our biggest enemy, the U.S. government, is still going to be armed. So you understand how these things create issues for us. So, but I promise you, you'll never have a black man say that out loud. You'll never have a black man who's working in corporate America feel comfortable to make that affirmative stance, because the anti-gun narrative is so strong right now that you better not make that comment. Now, we see that as one aspect of this. We see this in many other types of dialogues. We see this inside of many other types of things that many of us feel and many of us think that we're afraid to say. Many of us think and many of us feel is in the best interest of our community, but we will not dare say that publicly because we do not want to face the wrath of losing our economic mobility. This is a way that the Democratic Party has really strangled our people as far as having an honest discourse, getting separate from the politics and getting amongst ourselves. Because we could have an effective conversation on our realities as far as guns and whatnot, what we need and what we don't need. But we can't have that if we're linked into this party that is going to drive the narrative and tell us, no, these things are not good for you. No, these things are hurt or harming you. No, look at what's happening in Chicago, what's happening here. And they're not going to talk about the fact that the guns in Chicago are being put into Chicago by the same government, but they're not going to talk about that. The guns in the hood are coming from a source inside of power. We're not going to talk about that. We're just going to talk about the fact that you guys shouldn't be armed and no one should be armed. We want you to agree with it. So unless we get amongst ourselves and separate from these people who are trying to drive our narratives, we're not going to be able to be honest about our issues, be honest about the situations that are facing us, about the realities of what's happening with our families. So I want to give you all a clear example, just hot off the press. Many of you probably already seen this. Jamie Foxx. This is what I mean by the fact that you don't need a lynching bill anymore. I mean, if the goal of lynching is to create genocide among Black people, unfortunately, many of us are doing that to ourselves because of our psychological trauma being played out on a national scene whenever we see many of our brothers and sisters taking the lives of one another. So you have that already happening. That's a check mark. You know, we're already seeing drastic numbers of people every year who are being murdered and slaughtered by one another. Then the other thing is fear. Well, if you want to instill fear, that's a check mark because the Black man is afraid to lose his economic positioning inside of this system. And you can see that with the Jamie Foxx story. So I do want to talk about that next. So many of you, I'm sure, saw it. I'm going to play it back. Jamie Foxx apologizes after fake friend's Instagram post is accused of being anti-Semitic. Foxx apologized to the Jewish community after a cryptic Instagram post about fake friends was accused of promoting anti-Semitism. Keyword, accused of promoting anti-Semitism. He knew it was not promoting anti-Semitism. He knew it. He knew that there was nothing anti-Semitic about what he said. Obviously, there's the reason of who are the Semitic people, but we're not going to get into that. Let's just pretend that these are the Semitic people. In that case, it's still not anti-Semitism. This was literally him posting something that is a saying inside of our community. Now, he said, despite the fact he knew it wasn't anti-Semitic, despite the fact he knew he wasn't talking about Jewish people, what did he say? I want to apologize to the Jewish community and everyone who was offended by my post. I know my choice of words have caused offense, and I'm sorry. That was never my intent. So you're going to apologize for your choice of words. You're going to apologize to a community that was not even a target of the post. You're going to apologize because why? You don't want to lose your economic livelihood. Everyone probably knows by now, but the post that he was apologizing for was saying on Instagram, they killed this dude named Jesus. What do you think they'll do to you? Hashtag fake friends, hashtag fake love. And emphasized when I seen this post, and I actually saw it early on before it like caught the wind. And I've seen someone talking about it on the internet. I didn't even know like why there was some people were talking about it. Like it literally went in one ear, out the other. I'm like, oh, he posted that, whatever. Not even thinking about the untouchables, not even thinking about people who could be offended. It literally was in one ear, out the other. And then circling back around, oh, y'all want to call that anti-Semitic. And what does Jamie Foxx do? Not say it wasn't, not deny it, not stand up for his ability to say something that is not at all what they're saying it is, not standing up for his own rights to speak. No, he apologizes. This is the public lynching I'm talking about. This is the type of lynching that instills fear into Black men everywhere. So that's what I mean when I tell you that they have control over our people. They have control over many of us because they control our economic livelihood. Another reminder of the fact that you'll never have power if you have to depend on the same system that oppresses you to employ you, to feed you, to pay your school fees, to pay your college fees. That same system, as long as you depend on it, they can do to you really what they want you to do. They can put you back into a position of submission. But I actually want to talk about the other example that we saw, which is again a reminder of what they don't want to see. That is our people, African people, feeling like we can do without the system. So I'm going to actually play the video of Neo after having had a controversy. Again, I'm sure many of you have already seen this. After having controversy for saying his opinion on parenting being one of the essential acts of freeing our people is actually teaching your children, guiding your children, maturing your children into being sane human beings, protecting your children, and his views that he stated on how he protects his children by not allowing them to tell him what they're going to do, especially at a young, feeble age. Of course, this caused a lot of controversy to the LGBTQI community because many of them are pushing the idea that children's judgment should be trusted above time, maturity, and that you should essentially take them at their word when they tell you certain things. So, want to play Neo's video right here.
What's going on, loved ones? This is Neo. All right, listen. I normally don't give too much of a damn about what y'all think about what I do, what y'all have to say about what I say, whatever. I normally don't care because, like I said, opinions ain't special. Everybody got one. However, this is something I feel very strongly on, and I need y'all to hear this from the horse's mouth, not the publicist's computer. So check this out. First and foremost, I do not apologize for having an opinion on this matter. I am a 43-year-old heterosexual man raising 5 boys and 2 girls, okay? That's my reality. Now, if my opinion offended somebody, yeah, sure, I apologize for you being offended because that wasn't my intention. My intention is never to offend anybody. However, I'm entitled to feel how I feel. I'm absolutely entitled to feel how I feel the same way you are entitled to feel how you feel. I ain't asked nobody to follow me. I ain't asked nobody to agree with me. I was asked a question and I answered the damn question. Okay? I have no beef with the LGBTQIA plus community whatsoever. I ain't got no beef with y'all. Do whatever the hell it is you want to do. Do what you want to do with your kids. However, somebody asked my opinion on this matter, and this is how I feel. I will never be okay with allowing a child to make a decision that detrimental to their life. I will never be okay with that. I don't care. I definitely plan to educate myself a little bit more on this matter. However, I doubt that there's any book anywhere or any opinion that somebody's going to tell me that's going to make me okay with letting a child make a decision like that. That's just period, point blank, and that's how I feel. If I get canceled for this, then you know what? Maybe this is a world where they don't need a Neo no more, all right? And I got no problem with that. I'm a hustler, all right? I'll figure it out. I got kids to raise, and I'm going to do that regardless. So, with that being said, y'all have a good day. I love everybody. Live how you want to live, love how you want to love, but your opinion is yours. Speak your opinion as much as you damn well feel like it. Because as I said, they're not important, they're not special. Everybody got one, and you're entitled to it. I'm entitled to mine, all right? Y'all feel how y'all want to feel. Have a great day. It's Neo. Peace and love.
What Neo did right here, again, goes back to what they don't want to see. They don't want to see us not caring about the consequences. As far as the Alabama or people in Alabama, they don't want to see us not caring about the consequences. Or people in Alabama who knew, many of them probably knew, I'm going to go to jail for this. I'm sure the guy with the chair probably had a thought in his head that he's going to jail for this. He didn't care about the consequences. He didn't care about the consequences. And many of them who participated, they didn't care about the consequences because at that particular point is about what was right and what was wrong. And Neo, in this instance, showing that he didn't care about the consequences of his words, of his beliefs, particularly as far as parenting, that is something that they're very afraid of. That's something that they want to prevent. So what do these things all have in common? They have in common the fact that our people are being put inside of a season today where we have to make a choice. Are we for the system or are we against the system? If you're for the system, you're going to do what the system wants. If you're for the system, you're going to work with the system. If you're for the system, you're going to do what the system commands. But if you're against the system, you have to get comfortable with the idea of what the system, that the system will turn on you. The system will turn on you whenever you want to speak truth. The system will turn on you whenever you want to speak whatever it is that you feel without regard to what the system says you can feel. The system will turn on you whenever you want to do something that offends the untouchables. The system will turn on you whenever you want to defend yourself, particularly with violent means. They'll turn on you for that. The system will turn on you whenever you want to stand up for your community in an unapologetic way. And if you're ready to deal with those consequences and the ramifications of that, then they have no control over you. Now understand, that puts you inside of a position where essentially you were saying that you're not afraid, and they don't like that. So if you're understanding that and understanding that you have to deal with the reality of what unafraid people do, then you have to start equipping yourself, start arming yourself, start preparing yourself, because that stance of being unapologetic and being unafraid is something that they're going to drastically try to stop from spreading. They don't want that to spread in our community. They don't want that to be the narrative that gets shared around amongst our people. So that's what I have for this video. I want to remind you all, do go to the Patreon. Link is down below so that you can join this conversation amongst our people. But thank you all for watching. I'll see you on the next video.